My family is holding me accountable for the complete implosion of my sister's wedding. The truly wild part is that I was on a beach in the Florida Keys, nursing a mojito and watching the sunset, when her groom decided to make a run for it. They are utterly convinced that if I had just been there, I could have somehow stepped in and saved the day. But they are missing the entire fundamental point. My absence was not the problem. To them, my very existence always was. To understand how deeply twisted this is, you have to understand the layout of my family's universe. My older sister, Amelia, was not just the sun. She was the whole damn solar system. She was bright, she was hot, and she demanded that everything orbit around her. My parents were her loyal astronomers, their entire lives dedicated to mapping her glorious trajectory and celebrating every flicker of her light. And what was I? I was a piece of space debris they had mistaken for a distant moon years ago, forgotten, but still caught in the relentless gravitational pull of her drama. Growing up, calling Amelia the golden child would be a spectacular understatement. She was the star of every production, the lead in every play. She had a perfect grade point average, was president of the student council, and had a social life that made established socialites look like recluses. Our family home was less of a home and more of the Amelia archives. The mantelpiece over the fireplace was so crowded with her tennis trophies and academic decathlon medals that we were genuinely worried about its structural integrity. The walls of the family room were a collage of framed newspaper clippings and certificates celebrating her every minor achievement. My mother had this uncanny ability to weave Amelia's latest accomplishment into literally any conversation. She could be talking to the mailman about postage rates and would somehow end with, "And speaking of first class, my Amelia just got early acceptance to her top choice university." I was her opposite, the shadow that proved she was standing in the sun. I was the quiet one, the kid who preferred the solemn, dusty silence of a library to the manic energy of a high school pep rally. I was an artist. My personal heaven was being alone in my room with a set of charcoal pencils, creating entire worlds on a blank page. My achievements were internal and quiet, which, in the currency of my family, meant they were worthless. When Amelia was crowned homecoming queen, my parents threw a catered dinner party that spilled out onto the lawn. When I won a statewide competition and a scholarship to a summer arts intensive in New York, my father gave me a distracted pat on the back and said, "That's wonderful, honey. Now, could you help your mother bring out the appetizers? We're celebrating Amelia getting a corner office in her summer internship." I learned early on that trying to earn their approval was like trying to catch smoke in my hands. My sense of worth had to come from myself, because it was certainly not coming from them. But through it all, I was always her person. I was her emotional support system, her on-call therapist, her crisis manager. When a friendship went sour or a boyfriend acted like an idiot, my phone was the one that rang at 3 in the morning, her sobs on the other end. I was the one who spent hours proofreading her college essays until they were perfect. I was the reliable, invisible stagehand, making sure the star of the show never missed a cue. So when she got engaged to Liam, a man I genuinely thought was a great guy, I was happy for her. Liam was kind, he was grounded, and he had a calming effect on Amelia's more theatrical tendencies. I assumed my role as the maid of honor would be a supportive one, and I was genuinely ready to step up. I had these daydreams of us laughing over cake tastings, me giving her honest but loving advice on flower arrangements, and planning a bachelorette party that was more her style than a cliché weekend of debauchery. But that invitation to participate never materialized. The weeks after the engagement announcement bled into months, and a strange, unnerving silence grew between us. Then the updates started appearing on her social media. a series of professionally shot photos from a high-end bridal salon in Chicago, showing Amelia and my mother sipping champagne, surrounded by white gowns. The caption read, "A day of pure magic finding my dream dress with my number one girl, my mom." I wasn't invited. A few weeks later, another post. This time it was a weekend in Nashville. A video montage of a dozen women in matching pink, Amelia's bride tribe, t-shirts, line dancing and screaming along to country music. I found out about it the same way her 1,000 other followers did, by scrolling through my phone. Every time I tried to gently ask her what was happening, she became a master of evasion. "Oh, the dress shopping? That was totally last minute. Mom and I just happened to be walking by and decided to pop in," she'd say, as if these exclusive boutiques didn't have a 6-month waiting list for appointments. Or the Nashville trip was just a thing with my old sorority sisters. "You've always hated that kind of loud scene. I was just saving you from the boredom." Every excuse was a flimsy, pathetic attempt to cover the truth. I was being systematically, and very deliberately, excluded. My parents were, as always, completely unhelpful. When I finally broke down and confessed to my mom how hurt I was, she sighed the long, weary sigh of a martyr. "Chloe, please, let's not make this about you. This is Amelia's special time. You know how stressed she gets. The best thing we can do is just keep the peace." In my family, keeping the peace was the official code for Chloe needs to suppress her feelings so that Amelia doesn't have to acknowledge them. The final, brutal confirmation of my exile arrived in the mailboxes of everyone I knew except for me. My cousin texted me a photo of the wedding invitation. It was beautiful, printed on thick, creamy cardstock with delicate silver foil. It formally requested the pleasure of the recipient's company at the marriage of Amelia and Liam. The guest list, I soon gathered from the family grapevine, was massive. It included my dad's golfing buddies, my mom's book club, and some of Liam's distant cousins he had met once at a family reunion. But it did not include me, her only sister. That was the moment the dam broke. All the polite little lies and passive-aggressive social media posts washed away, leaving behind a single, cold, hard fact. I was not wanted. A few days later, I intercepted Amelia when she stopped by our parents' house. I fought to keep my voice from shaking, but the hurt was a physical pressure in my throat. "Just tell me why, Amelia," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why am I not invited to your wedding?" She refused to even look at me. She busied herself by adjusting a picture frame on the mantel, a picture of her naturally. "Look, Chloe, it's not personal," she said, her tone completely flat, as if she were reading from a script. "We just decided to keep the guest list very curated. We only wanted people who have been truly central to our journey as a couple." A dry, bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. "Central to your journey? You invited Dad's entire Sunday golf foursome. You invited Mom's friends from her gardening club. I am your sister. We shared a bathroom for 17 years. How am I not part of your story?" She finally spun around to face me, her expression a cold mask of annoyance. "You want the honest truth? Your entire energy is a downer. You never have a good time at big parties. You just stand in a corner with that look on your face like you're dissecting everyone. I don't want that kind of heavy, critical energy at my wedding. I want my pictures to be full of happy, smiling people." So it was personal. It was the most explicit confirmation of a fear I had harbored my whole life. In the perfectly curated gallery of her life, I was a flawed painting, a smudge on the pristine white wall. My parents, predictably, rushed to her defense. "It's her special day, Chloe," my father said, unable to meet my eyes. "She gets to decide who she shares it with. Her happiness is the most important thing right now." No one ever considered my happiness. No one seemed to register that my own family was treating me like an outcast. And in that moment, something inside me didn't just break, it flash froze. The deep, vast ocean of hurt solidified into a sheet of cold, hard ice. They had made their position clear. Now it was my turn to make mine. If I wasn't good enough to be at the celebration, then I certainly wasn't going to be available for the inevitable post-disaster cleanup. I knew my family. I knew Amelia. If one single detail went wrong, if the flowers were the wrong shade of white, they would need a scapegoat. And my default setting in this family was to absorb blame and manage chaos. Not this time. That very evening, I went home, opened my laptop, and with a feeling of pure, defiant liberation, I booked a 7-day, all-inclusive, non-refundable vacation to a resort in the Florida Keys. My flight was scheduled to leave 2 days before the wedding and return 4 days after. As I entered my credit card information, a wave of giddy relief washed over me. I packed my bikinis and sundresses, set up an automated out-of-office reply on my work email, and the morning I left for the airport, I turned my cell phone off completely. I was cutting the digital leash that had kept me tethered to their world. I was going dark. The day of Amelia's wedding was, for me, absolute paradise. I woke up not to a frantic call about a missing ring bearer, but to the gentle clinking of ice in a glass and the sound of palm trees swaying in the breeze. I spent the morning reading a novel by the pool. Later that afternoon, at the exact time Amelia was supposed to be walking down the aisle, I was taking a slow walk along a pier, watching pelicans dive for fish in the impossibly blue water. I found a quiet tiki bar, ordered a mojito, and watched the sky turn pink and orange. I had braced myself for some kind of emotional backlash, a pang of regret or a flicker of sadness for the milestone I was missing. But it never arrived. What I felt instead was a profound, almost overwhelming sense of peace. It was the peace that comes from being completely untethered, from not having to perform a role I never auditioned for. There were no fake smiles to plaster on my face, no awkward small talk with distant relatives asking why I was still single. No need to bite my tongue while my mother delivered a 10-minute toast about her perfect daughter. For the first time in my 30 years on this planet, I was unapologetically choosing myself, and it felt incredible. I kept my phone off for another full day, soaking in the blissful silence. But on the 3rd day of my trip, my curiosity finally got the better of me. I figured I would turn it on, see a few hundred wedding pictures, feel a momentary sting, and then get back to my book. I plugged the phone in, and when it finally powered on, it was like a digital bomb had detonated. The screen lit up with a chaotic, frantic flood of notifications. 32 missed calls, 61 text messages, 11 voicemails. They were from my mother, my father, my aunts, my cousins, everyone. The sheer volume was alarming, and a tight knot of dread began to form in the pit of my stomach. I scanned the text previews. From Mom, "Chloe, you need to call me the second you get this. It's an emergency." From Dad, "Where are you? This is an absolute catastrophe. Amelia needs you. Your behavior is unacceptable." From my Aunt Carol, "I am just so disappointed in you, Chloe, to abandon your family in a time of crisis. Your sister is devastated." Abandon them? They had kicked me out. The hypocrisy was so thick I felt like I was suffocating. I skipped the texts and went straight to the most recent voicemail. It was my mother. Her voice was a ragged, hysterical cry. "How could you do this? How could you just disappear? If you had only been here, this never would have happened. She needed you. You have to get on a plane and come home right now." What never would have happened? Confused and now genuinely alarmed, I called my dad, figuring he would be the more rational of the two. He answered on the first ring, his voice heavy with a mix of fury and exhaustion. "Chloe, thank God. Where have you been?" "I'm on vacation, Dad. The vacation I booked after I was explicitly uninvited from the wedding. What in the world is going on?" He let out a long, defeated sigh, and the entire story came pouring out. The wedding had been a five-alarm disaster. Everything had been perfect. The 200 guests were seated, the string quartet was playing, and Amelia was in the bridal suite looking like she had stepped out of a fairy tale. But Liam, the groom, never showed up at the altar. Just moments before he was due to walk out, he had a complete meltdown. He told his best man he just could not go through with it. He slipped out a side entrance of the historic venue, got into his car, and just drove away. The only explanation he offered was a single, devastating text message to Amelia that read, "I am so sorry. I can't do this." Amelia had completely collapsed. My mother was inconsolable. The guests sat in stunned, awkward silence for the better part of an hour before my father had to get on the microphone and make the most humiliating announcement of his entire life. The perfect wedding, planned with the precision of a corporate merger, had self-destructed. And then came the part that made my blood run cold. "Your mother believes, and to be honest, I'm starting to agree with her," my dad said, his voice dripping with accusation, "that if you had been there, this could have all been avoided. You always knew how to talk sense into people. You could have talked to Liam, calmed his nerves. At the very least, you should have been here to support your sister. She's your family." I was stunned into a moment of pure, disbelieving silence. A dry, humorless laugh crawled up my throat. "Are you actually hearing the words that are coming out of your mouth?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Are you seriously trying to blame me for this? The two of you and Amelia spent the last 6 months making it painfully, abundantly clear that my presence was not only unnecessary, it was actively unwanted." I was heavy energy, but the second the groom flees the scene, I'm suddenly the one person who could have saved the day. That is an absolutely breathtaking level of delusion. "Chloe, this isn't the time for accusations." "No, this is precisely the time." I cut him off, my voice now sharp and clear as glass. "Amelia didn't want me there. She made her choice. She and Liam are both adults who are now dealing with the consequences of their own relationship. I am on a vacation that I paid for, and I am not cutting it short. I will be home when my flight is scheduled to land. Goodbye, Dad." I ended the call before he could respond. The beautiful, serene peace I had cultivated was shattered, replaced by a slow-burning rage. For the remainder of my trip, my phone continued to be a conduit for their poison. My mother sent long, rambling texts calling me selfish and cruel. My extended family joined the chorus, painting me as the heartless villain who was sipping cocktails while her sister's world crumbled. Amelia herself eventually sent a tear-stained, typewritten message that accused me of secretly celebrating her misery. I didn't respond to a single one. I was finished. They had used me as their emotional doormat for the last time. When I finally flew home, I was steeling myself for a confrontation. I expected to walk into a house thick with resentment. But the day after I got back, something completely unexpected happened. I got a message, but it wasn't from my family. It was from Liam. It was a long, heartfelt email. He started by apologizing profusely for the chaos he had caused, and for the public humiliation he had put Amelia through. And then, strangely, he apologized for the position he had put me in. I was confused. Why was he apologizing to me? Then I kept reading, and the entire catastrophe was illuminated in a shocking new light. He explained that his cold feet were not some last-minute panic attack. It was a slow-dawning horror that had been building for months. He described the immense pressure from Amelia and my parents to be the perfect husband for the perfect daughter, a role he felt increasingly suffocated by. He said he felt like his own thoughts, his own desires, and his own needs were being systematically ignored in the service of creating a perfect public image. He was, in his own words, a well-dressed prop in the Amelia show. And then came the part that literally took my breath away. "Chloe," he wrote, I know this is going to sound crazy, but a huge reason I couldn't do it was you. Or more accurately, it was watching how Amelia treated you. I saw her methodically and coldly cut you out of every single part of this wedding. I heard the way she talked about you when you weren't around, how she dismissed you as if you were a piece of furniture that didn't match the new decor. I actually brought it up to her once. I asked her why her own sister wasn't a bridesmaid, why you weren't even at the bridal shower. She just shrugged and said that you two were fundamentally different people, and that you wouldn't add anything positive to the vibe. It was so callous, so detached, and it was a massive wake-up call for me. I started looking at our own relationship through that same lens, and I saw the pattern everywhere. She did it to me too, just in smaller ways. She dismissed my concerns about our insane budget. She openly mocked my taste in music when we were choosing songs for the reception. She cared infinitely more about how our relationship looked on her social media feed than how it actually felt when it was just the two of us. Watching her treat you, her own flesh and blood, with such transactional cruelty made me realize something terrifying. That is simply who she is. She will always prioritize the perfect picture over the actual human beings in it. I realized I wasn't just marrying Amelia. I was marrying into a family system where only one person's feelings ever mattered. I couldn't sign up for a lifetime of being erased. I saw my own future in the way she looked right through you, Chloe, and I had to get out. I just sat there, staring at my laptop screen, completely and utterly speechless. For my entire life, I thought her casual cruelty was a special kind of poison she had concocted just for me. But it was. It was a fundamental feature of her operating system. She had built her dream wedding on a foundation of image and control. And that foundation was so fragile that one person finally seeing the truth was all it took to bring the entire structure crashing down. A strange cocktail of vindication and deep, profound sadness washed over me. I felt a fleeting pang of pity for a sister so lost in her own self-made fantasy that she drove away the very people who might have genuinely loved her. But the dominant feeling was one of absolute, unshakable clarity. Armed with this truth, I finally went to see my parents. I let them have their say. I sat there and let them unload all their anger, their disappointment, and their blame. And when they were finally finished, I calmly and quietly told them what Liam had written in his email. I explained that their perfect daughter's perfect wedding didn't disintegrate because I was in Florida. It disintegrated because it was a fraud, orchestrated by a person who valued the appearance of love more than love itself. They refused to believe it. He's a coward making up excuses for his own weakness. My mother insisted. He's just trying to shift the blame from himself. But for the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in my father's eyes. He knew, on some level, that I was telling the truth. Amelia has not spoken a single word to me since that day. In the story she tells, I am the evil sister who poisoned her fiancé's mind against her. My parents still treat me with a frosty, polite distance, caught between their lifelong worship of Amelia and the inconvenient truth of what really happened. But their opinions no longer have any power over me. I have no idea if my family will ever truly repair itself. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I no longer lie awake at night worrying about it. That trip to the Keys did more than just give me a tan. It taught me that choosing yourself is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of survival. I spent my entire life shivering in the long, cold shadow cast by my sister's manufactured sun. But now, for the very first time, I am learning to build my own fire, to generate my own warmth. I am never going back into the cold again.